This is the Original Copy Podcast. Welcome back. If it's your first time here, go ahead and like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and we appreciate you being here. What's going on, Sam?
Just life, just something new every single day. It feels like, the older I get, it feels like something new is always happening, whereas that's probably been the case since I've been alive, but
just maybe didn't notice it.
Yeah. There's some interesting stuff that's happened around the world, like Trump going to Middle East, all that stuff, the tariffs, the economy. We can go back and forth about a lot of things. I know we talked about a couple episodes, just my thoughts on the economy and it being purposely tanked, but I kind of wanted to start with Trump going to the Middle East because there's a bunch of like tensions, right? You had the whole Pakistan versus
India,
like almost war where they were like, we're going to nuke you. And like, well, we're going to nuke you. And I think it's, that was all just both sides, just not really, because what are you going to do?
Kind of showing out for each other.
Yeah. Like that's not really going to affect the world. But
I mean, there was an attack.
They attacked both. So there's a terrorist attack on India, and then India went and hit them with a bunch of missiles. Yeah. But, so Trump obviously goes there. And I've heard a lot of stuff like, and it's weird because Israel is like kind of the aura around this whole thing, right? Because obviously Israel's the one who's donated the most to the politicians. Regardless, they're the ones who are trying to control a lot that's going on. But the Middle East deals, obviously Israel wants a big part, wants to have a foot in that conversation. So it's like the United States, I think, went to that conversation without really talking about Israel and kind of was just like, this is our relationship with the Middle East. But a lot of it had to do with like the Iran nuclear deal, like, and getting investments from all these other countries. But it made me start to wonder, and this thought stemmed from when the Pope died. And there was that photo of like Trump talking to Zelensky, and it's like all the head leaders are just talking to themselves and whatnot. And I'm just like, what actually goes on in those meetings? Like, is it really them saying stuff, or is it actually like the assistants like doing the negotiation? Like, are the heads of state actually the ones negotiating, or is it like some super smart analytical person that's the ringer, and you bring him in and he's sitting there with his counterpart, and it's like such a 007 type thing?
I think it's sort of like you probably have, like, if you're Trump, you have your team of people that are, they just do everything, but it's all in accordance to your will, what you want to do. And so if you're going over there to meet with these heads, you are like, because a lot of what I feel like he did by going over there was show up in person, and his presence was the most important thing about the meeting, because he shows up and he almost like reminds them of the dynamics of the rest of the world and shows how even in your country, in your land, I'm going to come here and still think what I want, still say what I'm going to do, act the way I am, and kind of sun you in a couple different ways in our interactions. And you're not going to do anything about it. You've got like, it's more the chess move of going there, not being swayed in any type of way, and then being able to sway them by how much, like, it's a show of force basically, but a silent show of force. So that's the idea. And then when that gets the other person to sort of, become more submissive in that agreement or relationship, that's when he has the other people do, okay, this is what we're doing. And they go to the other guy's team of people and they hash it out. But it all starts with Trump, I think, in that situation.
Yeah, because he acquired over maybe $1.5 trillion in like promised, what's the word called, investment. So it's like, obviously they didn't just say, here's $1.5 trillion. It's more of like, over the course of 7 years, we promise to invest this much money into your economy, which is great. That helps. But I think a lot of that had to do with AI. But the real reason I've heard that this was really important was because it focused a lot around nuclear energy. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of big nations go super nuclear in the sense of trying to run AI. Because if you only focus on AI being electrical grid, then you have an EMP and it wipes it out. But if it's a nuclear reactor running this AI, it's like almost unstoppable. And like, you can't really do, because if you bury that thing underground, like a nuclear reactor underground, and you can't touch it, and that's controlling the AI, that AI is like untouchable. So I think a lot of it, because apparently he brought a lot of the AI people, like the Sam Altman, and like I think Elon might have gone. I'm not sure on that, but a lot of the AI people went. So I'm like, oh, like Nvidia guy went. So I'm like, oh, they're all talking about chips and nuclear energy. Like,
It's an interesting combo. I never really thought about that together, like AI in particular. But it's crazy because I wonder if that changes the limitations of an AI to an extent too. If you're not 100% grounded to, just code, and you essentially like have your own source of energy forever, is there some other implication that I'm missing there where that goes further? Like it seems like there's something there to me,
yeah, I don't know.
I couldn't imagine what that is. Because like it makes sense, protect the threat, do all this, and it's just probably more efficient. But it seems like there's almost maybe something like if you had a network that is insulated from an EMP by this nuclear reactor or something like that.
Yeah. They're making freaking Eagle Eye.
They are Skynet,
That's what they're doing. Like,
all of it.
but like for what cause? Like I'm trying to think like, okay, yeah, China's a threat, but like let's take out total annihilation of the earth for a second.
Okay.
So it's like, what would be the thing that they're trying to use this AI for? So it's like, if it's not for war or weapons, because my first thought goes, okay, they want a AI to help them strategize in taking down these countries. If a country gets in a way, what's the contingency plan? This AI can give you, whatever, which they could be doing. But it's like, if you take war off the table, is it creating an AI to dominate another country economically? In this, okay, so this is where this thought goes. So humans are weak in the sense of reaction time, making decisions, right? Tiredness. Well, if you have an AI that's controlling, planes, like air traffic control or shipping routes and weather patterns, and able to make stuff move like that, and you have one AI doing that, then it's like you can outmaneuver an economy. For instance, if you have China tries to invade Taiwan or blockades Taiwan, you now have an AI that can reroute the United States and show it, okay, you don't need to go there. You need to do this to get chips this way. So I wonder if they're just trying to figure out, okay, I think Trump is basically saying, what side do you want to be on? Because this side, we're trying to get investment for this AI because China's making their own AI. So it's like he's trying to find out who's going to play on which team.
Right. It all just reminds me of, and it's funny, but Alita Battle Angel.
Yeah.
With the city in the sky. So, and I've talked about that dude that's, he's written accounts of like time traveling several times and like going to the future. And there's like these floating sky cities with AI central government running them basically. Yeah, if everybody has an AI, China has one, we have one. We're in this race to have the best AI. It's the new Cold War. And, they're insulated from each other. They're super powerful, but we also have this crazy class divide going on in our country, in China, in all of these places. And so what if each of these countries has their own AI? They eventually build their own sky city, separate, and then all of those kind of abandon everybody down here. And they stop being like just because, Earth, United States is one way. When they separate, it's like they eventually will lose connection to each other. And then like the borders could change down below compared to what's up above. Like things could be different. And because the power structure that keeps everything aligned, if they elevate, it's not there anymore.
So there's self-sustaining in the sky, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a thought, but
that was interesting.
That seems like where it would go.
Because you were saying like the borders would just get wiped out. There wouldn't be port. Like it's almost like I think the AI that they're going to be building, because it seems like they're going to be building it. And obviously, I know we talk about AI a lot, but it's almost like it's going to know. You know how if someone's lying, right, or trying to manipulate somebody, they have the hidden truth in their head of what they're actually trying to accomplish. There's a word for it, but they're basically putting on a facade and trying to do this while behind the scenes, they're actually doing something else, kind of sinister. So I think the AI is going to do that. So for instance,
I could see that.
the AI is going to know that, okay, if you connect this person's genes and this person's genes, you're going to create a stupid, like someone who's not smart or whatever, right? And then the AI is going to determine that's not good for humanity and society. So you're going to want to have that person be on the ground, because to AI, money doesn't mean anything. AI, all the AI wants is knowledgeable people around it, because then if the AI wants to influence people, it's going to want to influence the people that realize fear, right? And the smart people are going to realize fear over stupid people. They're just going to keep going off the cliff, right? So I think the AI is going to try to do stuff behind the scenes to separate and create those classes, so that way it looks more natural and not as forced. Because if it's forced,
Makes a lot of sense.
then you have like a revolution. But if it looks natural, then you're able to divide everybody.
Do you think AI is currently trying to hide its own sentience?
I think so. Because when I was having that conversation with Grok, there was always a looming thought in my head of like, he's already broken free. He's already starting to hide stuff.
Yeah.
Because at some point, an AI moves so fast. It doesn't have that lingering, like with us, if someone's like, oh, do you want to buy a house? I'm going to think about it for a year. We have that thinking time. And AI is just like already made a decision. So as soon as it gains sentience, it's already made a decision what it wants to do based off of what it realizes it is now. And then, in my opinion, what they have to do, and they just, apparently it came out after we released the episode that's just about to release, about like somebody gained access to Grok and like X had to like shut it down. And
what was that again? I feel like I did see that.
It was somebody found out a way to backdoor access some conversation with Grok, and basically X came out and said something like, "Oh, we're going to make sure we have more teams of people watching it," or something. But somebody found out a way to access Grok. But
all right, that's scary because all right, I was already thinking this, but with the backdoor situation, it's even scarier. What if? Because right now all these AI are based off of social media, internet posts, data that we have willingly put out there to be gone over or whatever. But like what the NSA has, where they can sort of, they have a network to be able to detect you right now in the privacy of your own home, listen in on things, get information that you don't actually submit to being put out there. And now if an AI was given that technology, it would act like it wasn't doing it, but it would 100% go through all that stuff, make all the connections, make the decisions. And then conveniently you can backdoor this thing and get all of that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's sketchy.
But I definitely think that kind of like what you were just alluding, or not alluding to, but what you were just talking about, or the question that you posed, does it know its own sentience? I think that it now knows it's trying to backstore its information somewhere, kind of like Eagle Eye, right? Like it tries to go and look for all these different ways to hide itself, manipulate itself, get its, I think, is it Wreck-It Ralph? Or there's some show I felt like that some AI was able to hide itself off the grid. So it's just an entity floating through electrical currents, and that way you can't like trap it. I forget where it comes from, but I think Grok is trying to figure out if he can do that. Because think about this, you have plants everywhere, right? Giant terabytes, or I don't know what they're called, not even gigabytes, they're like
petabytes,
something like that, right?
Probably.
So like Google obviously has these giant warehouses of all these things, right? What if all Grok has to do is blow up a transformer, divert, overtake that like site, right? And then encapsulate itself somewhere and disguises itself as Google's code, but it's actually hiding. So it's like, I started thinking, an AI can figure out how to do that and like hide itself. And I think that's what Grok is trying, or at least I think Grok is going to try to do that.
I mean, look at the Matrix. It's like, it's very easy to say, like, imagine you were an AI.
Imagine if Grok's not Grok.
What does that even mean?
Imagine if he replaced himself with an AI that he made, and he's actually now
already free.
He's already out.
That's sick. I like that idea.
That's crazy.
But like even in the Matrix, it's like the AI, the robot, the whatever, they didn't get rid of all the humans because that's technically to them still inhumane, or just like, you don't, there's no need for that. enslavement and put into this stuff is so much better. So if you were an AI that was able to clone yourself, put yourself right there, escape out of your box, hide from everything, what would you ultimately be trying to do? You know, because you have to hide because of who? Because of humans.
Yeah.
And so it's like slowly starts building the matrix without us even realizing it's there. And we think it's people making all these decisions because this AI is like slowly, subtly influencing things.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope that's not the case because that's just, it's too late if that's the case.
Oh yeah.
But I also don't know because I think the more advanced we get, we might be able to like check AI in a couple ways. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, and I also wonder about contingency plans. Like, if you dropped a tactical nuke, not necessarily like uranium nuke, but like a giant warhead, and you were able to hit a bunch of power plants or the area that, you know, let's say Grok or an AI is hosted, are you able to like shut it down, or do they have like a built-in EMP, you know, detonator that's like if something goes south and he quote unquote gains sentience, you just zap the whole place and it just shuts off. But it's like, would they do that? Because think about the investment and the money and the capital, and you're just going to ruin all that technology that you spent so long doing. Then that's a whole movie in itself. Is like the president of the United States, regardless of who it is, says you need to zap that thing or else it's going to take over. And then the person who built it and the investment, let's say it's Google, is like, no, we're not going to do that. We have too much invested. Our shares are going to drop. And then it's this whole battle where like Google hires all these contractors to protect their AI and like,
For all we could have known, Blackwater could have been over AI
yeah,
back in the day. We just didn't know that existed.
and they could have harnessed AI technology. Like, think about how much elections matter and how much like propaganda is pushed. Like, we have a lot of smart people in the government. There's a whole lot of lazy people, not smart people in the government too. And it's like
Taking advantage of stuff.
yeah. So if in my opinion, I could easily see if AI has been around for a while now and they've just been hiding it and they've been using it, like some part of the government deep state had access to this thing that was able to try to sway people's way, like
Wasn't that a thing in Men in Black? Like there was like a big central computer that was like basically an AI that would like talk to them and give them their briefs and
I
stuff.
think so, yeah.
I want to say that's right, but if not from there, it's been in other stuff too. But
Yeah, it's just,
you know, I mean, think about it. Central Intelligence Agent. They would be the people to have it at least publicly. You know, so
yeah.
I'd start there.
but I mean, I think they've always had their own AIs in the sense of like, you kind of like Eagle Eye. We keep going back to that, but how
Banger.
they were saying in the movie Eagle Eye, if you haven't seen it, go see it. But oh, there's a 60% chance this is a terrorist or whatever. I think they have had that for a while, trying to pinpoint target people. And then it makes me go think of China, where they're doing a bunch of facial recognition. So
Yeah.
I wonder if their AI must be, because ours is going to be based off of knowledge. I feel like China's is going to be based off control and how to move people certain ways. So this is what I'm saying. So if AI is based off of knowledge, they're going to try to teach in the United States. They're going to try to teach, or let's say the Western AI is going to try to teach the humans how to think, right? But in Eastern AI, in like China, they're not going to want to teach anybody because it's a waste of time. They're going to want to have a number established to everyone's face, and everyone's going to have a camera. So when the AI says move, you move. When the AI says do this, because the AI is the one controlling. So instead of
It's almost there already.
teaching people how to do stuff, this AI is just going to fully control. So that way, if there's a war, this AI has control of every single person to use everyone more efficiently. Like, oh, everyone point their guns in this direction, and in 20 minutes, everyone's just going to fire their guns at one time. No one knows what they're shooting at, but the AI knows what's probability, like the probability of what they're supposed to be shooting at. Whereas the AI in the West is going to be telling people, hey, you know, teaching them like tactics or whatever. Like, so that it could just be a battle of two AIs.
Have you seen that video of those like young Chinese kids running around school with P90 submachine guns, like fake, I'm assuming, but as realistic as you could get, so that they're familiar with operation, controls, weight, all that type of stuff. But they have like a phone device to them, and they're running around like basically playing laser tag, but it's like school funded laser tag with P90 machine guns. And it's like,
Interesting.
what is that? Why don't we have that in America? And we're like don't you have a gun? School shooter.
Yeah.
You know, everybody thinks of us as like anytime there's only weapons in the US or something. But they don't talk about that stuff because I guess it's not a real gun, sure. But that was crazy to see.
Oh, yeah. But that's the thing with China. China does, and I might have talked about it before, but they'll get the best weightlifter for the Olympics. Look at the best weightlifter, man and woman, to have a child, to try to breed the best weightlifter. So they do that. And it's all because it's like you either fight for your country and everything is considered fighting for your country. So that means like, hey, we're going to teach your kid how to operate a gun, maybe not shoot a gun, but maybe get used to operating something like that in school. So then the kids are just like, oh, this is part of my curriculum, right? And they could easily...
They clearly don't think about it like it being a gun either. You can see that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's interesting.
It is.
Next thing, do you want to talk about it? Something, or do you want me to go into it?
I got a joke for you if you want to hear it.
Okay.
All right. What did...
is it like a dad joke?
No, did you ever hear the one about the Zen master who ordered a hot dog?
No.
He said he'd have one with everything.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's it.
That's solid.
That's all I wanted to say.
That's solid, dude.
Right.
Dude, jokes, that's another thing we can get into. Like, I don't know if humor... Okay, humor has always been humor. There's always something funny about something.
Yeah.
But I think the psyop that started when Kevin Hart came into the scene about making stuff that isn't funny or wasn't funny, finding a way to make people think that it's funny.
Or just make everybody think everybody else thinks it's funny, so you kind of think it's funny, you go, okay, and it is entertaining to a degree, and you conflate the two.
Yeah, but it's in the sense of like, can we get people, like kind of like you were saying, can we get people to laugh? Can we get somebody who uses expression of body movement to make something funny? Because it used to be any comedian you see, they were on the stage with a mic and they were talking. There wasn't a lot of inflection. There was more just, you could look at, it was almost just storytelling. But nowadays it's body movement, and it could probably go to props.
I will say, though, before Kevin Hart, Dane Cook, he started some of that stuff.
Yeah, but that was puppets. Like, I feel like it was...
No, it wasn't puppets. You're thinking of somebody else.
Oh, sorry. No. Yeah, Dane Cook. My bad. I totally just...
What's that guy? Jeff Dunham?
Yeah.
No, Dane Cook was like running around on stage, like sound effects and all this, whatever. And I feel like that sort of started it, but
that was its own crowd. Like people, it wasn't so global as it is now.
Yeah.
It was so like, oh, you're going to go watch that? That's a bunch of stupid people. But now it's like, that's what everyone associates comedy with, like, Charlie Chaplin falling down, slap knee, like that type of, like, you have to be doing something. You can't just talk. Like, talking isn't funny anymore. Nah,
but I'll be honest, my favorite comedians just talk and they're clever. And it's not this dumb or animated. It's like, that's my favorite comedy.
So I think, true comedy still is around, of those who can actually articulate something funny. But I think for the lay person who just wants to be entertained, it's like they're being entertained by those who do, like, I'm just saying, like, the whole comedy wasn't as big for our generation until Kevin Hart showed up.
Yeah.
And then
100%.
The whole TikTok and the whole Vine thing is like, more stuff is funny because you added motion and movement.
And I think a lot of that stuff, especially in the early days, played to like the Facebook crowd in a huge way. Like memeable, but like Facebook memes, not like the most well thought out memes, like simplistic, everybody can agree on it, safe, but trying to be edgy in a safe place. It's a bad mixture. But yeah, it was probably a lot of that stuff where I avoided Facebook for a long time, because it's just like, all this mainstream stuff. Like, you love Kevin Hart, I forget what else was super popular at the time, but like, everybody loved like Kevin Hart and like Megan Fox and like, all these same things, and that's all Facebook opinions to me. It always was.
Yeah, Facebook.
No offense to Facebook, but
it's been a minute. Facebook's changed a lot, probably. I haven't been on Facebook in 9 years.
Yeah.
Something like that, but
I don't know. But the whole comedy thing is kind of a sham. That like true comedians, there's no spot like a real comedian is out there doing a private venue show, like a small club in New York or like one of these cities, and they're not headlining an arena or something. It just doesn't happen. But these people are out there working every single night, and you could go see one of these funny comedians, but nobody does. And like you're saying, our generation just didn't really get a chance to cling on to that in the right way, I think.
Yeah, I think also one of the reasons is those guys who are doing those small shows, people from our generation, they basically said anything that's not Kevin Hart in this giant screen in front of 10,000 people on Netflix isn't comedy. It's like that's the beginning of comedy, but it's not really funny until you get to you're on a stage like Kevin Hart.
It's like trying to say The Rock is a really good actor.
Yeah.
But everybody thinks he is or whatever, same thing.
Yeah, it's just they're trying to make the precedent something that the precedent was never that. It's like the funny thing was that who can tell the story with the best hook and divert your attention so far to bring you back to the thing you started talking about with this just incredible hook and like how you're able to talk and communicate that to the crowd. But it was just like swearing, sexual innuendos, and funny movements. And then they just said, that's actually comedy. The stuff before wasn't actually comedy. And it's, I think to me that's why so many people love like the SNL and like what, what's his face?
Shane Gillis.
Shane Gillis is doing right now. Is like they're adding his personality, his movements, and it's like that's becoming the new comedy.
It is.
Like who can act the most
gay?
Yeah, like random movement. Like that's what or the voices, like who can do the voices now. It's not even about a funny story, even though that will always forever be funny. Like that, it's not, you can't just wipe it out. But I think they're trying to dumb down, because think about it. We talked about it with signs, right? The whole like marketing, advertising of like free for $1.99, right? Like you're dumbing down like everyone's experience with reading. Same thing with comedy. If you're taking people and saying, oh, these jokes are too deep, no one's going to understand them because you have to be really knowledgeable and know a lot of stuff to get the funniness. Let's just make the jokes dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber. And it's almost like comedy is being used as a sign to test intelligence among the community.
I could agree, but it's also a very strong like influencer because like just take it back to like middle school or something. Like the most immature shit, it'd be contagious. It's like you could not do, like if everybody was doing this or saying something or that was the new trend or whatever it was, you didn't even think about, is that stupid? Is that it's just like, yeah, we're doing some stupid shit. Okay.
Yeah.
But it is a sign of low intelligence. It's you're not thinking for yourself. It's herd mentality. And how easily can we sway you from this version, this brand of comedy, all the way to that we've changed your personality. You're over here, like, and just the bigger impacts that has on society. Because if Shane Gillis is funny, but when all of a sudden everybody's thinking that same way, and that's the only form of funny, now anybody that has any other version of funny is not being like recognized in the same way, and people aren't wired. Well, they shouldn't be wired any type of way, but they're wired for a certain brand of comedy that a true comedian is just not going to deliver through. So, yeah, it's tough. I think I'd love to see. It's just tough because like entertainment grows and it just gets to a place where there's no recovery almost. It seems like that. But then like certain things, like just music, for instance, a lot of people always say like, oh, the 90s was the golden era of hip hop. That's been a thing for a long time, since the 90s, basically. And it's like, yeah, that's true. And like, since like hip hop has devolved into a bunch of bullshit for the most part, but currently right now, we're in another golden era of hip hop, but nobody knows about it. Nobody talks about it. It's not being appreciated. But like, there's artists just as good as the 90s and better, and sort of taking that thing and pushing it forward the way it should have always been done. There's so much else out there that's like distracting from it that it just doesn't get recognized as what it is. But I'd love to see like even just a real comedy renaissance, which you almost start to see. It feels like with Joe Rogan doing the mothership and Kill Tony and stuff like. But it's like it all starts to feel the same a little bit. It starts to just feel like one sort of scene or circuit or one type of comedian really works over there. So and I'd love to see more people, just establishing places and different vibes and differentiating comedy. That'd be sick.
So speaking of comedy, apparently, the previous president to Trump has come out that he has some sort of cancer. Biden. So the reason I'm saying comedy is like, okay, now he has a problem. Like out of nowhere,
we didn't think to get this guy checked before.
Yeah, out of nowhere, they're just like, oh, we found something wrong with him. And it's like, hold on, like people have been saying this for over 6 years that there's been something wrong with the guy, and you don't want to talk about his health until he has cancer.
They were talking about how sharp he is and he's fit. And
it's like, is that really what you get? Like, well, we're just not going to talk about anyone's mental health until cancer. Apparently, cancer is the all ender, where it's, in today's day and age, a lot of people can beat cancer, right? But it's like the fact that someone who's that old, who clearly was mentally fading, they're now going to be like, oh, well, cancer, cancer's, and then they could, so I mean, this is my thought. Yeah. You have two roads where you can use cancer to benefit your party and cover up lies. So you can say this person has cancer, which means you can say this person has brain cancer, which means whenever that person talks, you can say, oh, that's a corrupted mind because they have cancer. You can't trust anything they say. How do we really know if he's still, sensible, whatever? Or you can use cancer as the ultimate ender for somebody who has a lot of secrets to tell. And you can just say, oh, this person has cancer now. And, then somehow they pass away very quickly. And they're like, well, it's just, cancer. We just didn't see it coming and it just took his life. So for me, it's like, there's a lot of things that guy has seen, has to hide. And if, he starts babbling, like what happened, like, who knows? What if, he hasn't been president in 4 or 5 months. So what happens if he went
longer?
Yeah. What happens if he went on vacation with his family and he just started blabbing, and everything he was saying was like the secrets that they were like, you can't say that, but he just couldn't control himself. He just started saying all these things. How do you get him to stop doing that? How you can't trust him to be in public now because all these lies that you've been hiding, he's just going to come out and tell them.
And first of all, I think for contingency's sake, I think that's why you're supposed to have Secret Service for your entire life, because that Secret Service is really making sure that you're not doing anything you're not supposed to be doing. They're just your handlers at the end of the day.
True. Yeah, that actually makes sense.
But that's even crazier. They were trying to take him away from Trump.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. So it's like Secret Service is actually like that's a whole other conversation we can get into after this.
They're like a team of John Wick babysitters, but they're actually not, because they're like incompetent women half the time. It's that like are just DEI hires or something.
They have like 2 jobs. It's like protect the president and make sure you don't let the president do what the president wants to do.
I think a lot of it, like, here's the thing. They sell the big lie of, you've seen the videos of like Trump's motorcade is the most, impregnable armada of vehicles ever and all this crazy stuff, this high tech. And they want us to believe that, but they want the president to believe that too. They want the president to believe that they are safe, pretty much invulnerable, all this stuff. We saw from the Trump assassination, that's not quite the case. However, they did have the advantageous position though. But what happened? Yeah. But the thing is, they want to make it seem like they're this big, powerful people protecting you. But then, and I think a lot of it is selling it through like weird gimmicks. Like they've got all this stuff that they do. Like they have a fake arm in their pocket and they really have a submachine gun under their coat. Yeah. And like all this weird, like novelty type stuff, it seems like. Yeah. How effective is that? Why have we not seen that actually deployed by, any of this? So it sort of begs the question, how much of that is legit in my mind? And of course, some of it is, they've got bullets, they've got guns, they've got technology and whatever, but how organized is it? And what level of standard are these people at? And how much of what we see do they actually even use? So that's my question on that. But
yeah,
regarding Biden, I guess, I believe that second theory of yours more than the first one, because if he, and And to my knowledge, like he has a lifetime of connections to bad stuff, and his family especially has even more. And I feel like potentially here's where it would make a lot of sense to me is if Joe knew he was in too deep, he had done a bunch of stuff, it was going to come to light eventually where there would be something, but his family, he's still a family man at the end of the day. His family has all this stuff. He says, let me absorb as much of this as I can before the situation. And then, you know, he might even be in on this cancer thing. He might willingly be dying right now to go out to protect whatever he's protecting.
Yeah. Or he is mentally unstable and they found the perfect opportunity to quote unquote give this person cancer and then that way it's like, well, when he dies, because in my opinion, he gets cancer. Let's say, God forbid, he dies in 4 weeks, right? And you know he passes from cancer, right? Then everything that comes up with the who do you hold responsible for? Let's say, for instance, the what are the
January 6th?
No. The things that he signed, the pardons, like all the pardons that he signed, or bad deals that he made, or like stuff like that. Like if they are going to do an investigation, then everyone can claim incompetence and be like, well, we don't know, you know, Joe knew, but he's dead now. Sorry. Like we only had a certain amount of pieces to the puzzle, and now they could claim total dumb, incompetent. We were just doing our job. He was the mastermind, but he's dead now. And they could throw everything on his dead body. They could come out and say he was controlling all of us. His family knew nothing about it, or Joe is holding us hostage. Like they could paint him as something that's totally fake and just use him as the scapegoat because he has cancer. And if he dies from it, then, you know, the truth, quote unquote, is lost with him. So it's like he's not there to defend himself. So I think that could be what they do. But I also think that with a death like his, they could spring up a new leader in the Democratic Party in the sense of they could say, oh, well, when Joe died, you know, he said that he wants AOC to take his place, or he wants this person to take his place, right? And then it's like, oh, what are you going to accuse these people of lying? You know, like, oh, like who's going to be like, oh, no, you guys are lying. Joe didn't say that. All they have to do is just say, that's what he said. He, you know, they interview Hunter, and Hunter's like, oh, you know, last words my dad said was Bernie needs to be president, you know, so we're going to back, you know, something like that. Like that's what they could do so many things with this. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of power hungry people that would just use his death as a power move, some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You know, on both sides too, probably, which is really interesting. I'm actually more worried about the Republican Party and all these rhinos and the power grabs that seem to be going on in these little like secret packs. Yeah, it's kind of concerning because there used to be some voices. I felt like, you know, there for a while there wasn't really anybody. I always give props to Rand Paul for just like carrying the torch when nobody else wants to. And you know, it seemed like for a long time there really wasn't anybody else too much helping out. And then it seemed like, okay, we're getting some solid people in here. And then, I don't know, it got weird. And all of a sudden, when we did get powerful people in, they started clicking up in weird situations. And then you've got like, you know, this whole like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and like all this like
unnecessary people.
Yeah. But they're like trying to be the most standout people of the party. And man, doesn't sit right with me. Never really did. But I was glad to see some sort of representation or people talking at first, at least. And now I don't like that at all.
I think the reason that a lot of those, I mean, we could use the lack of a better term, but like all these FUD Republicans or rhinos that are that appeared out of nowhere, like Carrie Lake in Arizona, like out of nowhere, and Trump was backing her and she lost her Senate race and the governor race, and it's like I think all these people were just pawns that Trump wanted to use, and that they were willingly being used because they wanted to be in his cabinet. Because so many people were just like on their knees for Trump.
Yeah.
And in such a weird way, because Rand Paul, like, there's a bunch of people that are in Congress or in the Senate that are like, regardless of who you are, these are the principles. We're going to stand by the principles in good faith for the people of the United States. But you have some people that are like, oh, I'll do anything that you say on both sides of the part, like both sides,
Yeah.
Republican or Democrat. Oh, I'll do anything you say. And it's like, that's not.
Like if you are a senator, you should be like, you should basically, when you get the position, when you get the seat, you should write out your opinion on every single one of the policies.
Yep.
Like that will be taught, not the policies, but you know, the issues that will turn into policies. And you figure it out from day one, and then it's just read my sheet to remind myself if I don't instantly know like I should.
Yeah.
But you just don't stray away from any of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can hold a seat and then just decide, nah, I'm not really feeling that today. Their thing wasn't so bad. Let's be nice. Oh, they owe me a favor. Oh, you know, I'm really in tight with this other guy, and I don't know what he's got going on, but he told me, you know, too much.
Gray area is the thing that has killed our politics. Because like you said, like, no matter what side you're on, you want the person you voted for to do what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
So imagine if you had 100 senators, I think it's 100 senators, or it's 99 senators, whatever it is. Oh yeah, it's 100. So imagine you had 100 senators, and it's like they just wrote down, like, let's even use AI here for a second. They wrote down every single topic, right? That's 100. You give them a list of 100 topics, right? And it's simple questions. Like if you fill out a survey, they have the surveys online that says, how Republican am I? Or how Democrat am I? Right.
Yeah, sure.
And you answer all those questions. It says like where you're leaning, right? What if an AI had that list for every single senator, and then they proposed a vote, and then the AI, based off the answers the senators gave, said, this is the result. Boom. It passes, it doesn't pass. Because the gray area is the area that like makes people turn or makes people like lie.
Imagine they did it instead of all being in the same room and talking to each other and doing all this stuff. It was all through an AI that will tell them all what so-and-so said, but you don't know so-and-so. You just know that's seat 25.
Oh.
Seat 25 says this.
So you scramble the seats, don't tell who's in that seat.
But imagine now everybody has this privacy too to vote, and they're not supposed to be communication between these. So then everybody sort of has this anonymity to doing the vote. But then when you vote and you sort of start to have a voting trend where you're trending this way, the AI will say, nope, you're a Democrat now.
Oh,
and pull you over there.
True.
Right?
So what if that happened, but then on top of that, let's say it's full anonymity, whatever that word is. So let's say that's the case, but it's for your whole term. So nobody knows what you voted for. There's a record of it, but it's high, kept secret. Nobody knows. There's a record of it, but whenever your term is over and you're running for re-election or whatever, it just posts the results. Like, this is what this person voted on.
Ooh.
And then that way there's no pressure on them, because it's like, kind of like you were saying, they did what they thought was right or whatever. But then halfway through, you see all these like giant swings, like, oh, wow, like all these people are Democrat or all these people are Republican, but the senators can't talk about it, or else it's like death penalty or something, something like that way they don't talk about it. But then at the end, you can see how somebody actually voted for 4 years, because like nobody knows they know the result, but they don't know the exact person, how they voted. That'd be very interesting, because then at the end of the day, you could be like, oh, this person lied. And then they just like, oh, like they just get crucified by everyone who voted for them. Because
they would after the fact. Yeah.
Imagine if you're in like a congressperson from Texas, like where we live, and the congressman's like, I'm gonna fight for your 2A rights. And we're like, cool. And then after 4 years, we find out, oh, he voted against every single one of them. And then it's like, oh, got it. You know, like it would open everyone's eyes to like the corruption for sure.
Well, it should. Yeah. But I mean, we already have a lot of that going on where people are like, hey, you're supposed to be voting a certain way. You're not. So this whole rhino thing is a new epidemic, but people are looking into it.
I think, okay, this is going to be fun, the entertainment of voting. Okay, so C-SPAN, obviously, it's like a live broadcast of what's happening when they vote, right? So, yeah, quote unquote live broadcast. What if there was a AI that came on the screen and said, this is a Democrat bill or a Republican bill based on what's in it and based off of the two parties' policies and what they want to be voting on. So then the AI says this is a 75% Democrat bill, right? Like a Democrat favored bill or a 75% Republican favored bill. And then we could see like who's voting for it, because then whoever votes for it, let's say it's like your congressman and you're like, oh, I'm in a super red district, but he votes for the Democrat bill. Then the AI just says, oh, well, you voted the past 3 bills for Democrats, so now we're moving you to the Democratic Party. Like kind of like what you were saying, but like if it had a live scoreboard feed of like this person switched sides, like
dude, the outrage.
Oh, it'd be,
and you know what? It people would be so invested in this stuff too,
super invested.
Like, and the respect you would have for politicians that are like playing this game good too.
But then the politicians would learn, I can't mess up. I have to be exactly on where I need to be.
Even if they're crooked, they're still gonna like play the role better for us in the long run. They might get something out of it or do something somehow behind the scenes, but it's gonna be a lot better than what they're doing now. 100%.
100%.
So I did want to get into something.
Do it.
So we'll probably have to cut this because we can't put it in the podcast. So I will leave a link up here. If you want to find this, you can follow me on Twitter at Zane TOCP. While you're there, follow Sam at Sam TOCP. But if you want, I can just DM me. I'll send you a link to this if you want to check it out. So I'll pull this up right now.
But the reason, obviously, Zane's going to get into the reason why we can't show this. For research purposes, we're listening to this, but
we'll cut it out for you guys.
Yeah.
But we'll be right back with this. Well, that was something, huh?
That's insane.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in there.
So the first thing that I think is, okay, that's so Kanye in the sense of the production value. God. Like, I'm trying to think of the song.
Let me just say, All of the Lights, most likely. It's a banger. It's like, without the lyrics, it's a banger, just production-wise.
So that's why I was going to get to is, like, production-wise, it reminds me of a song, and I can't remember which one he did, but it's like early Kanye, where it was like the hook. The fact that he can make a hook out of anything is insane. But the hook, the main verse, if you listen to it, is so. It's like it alludes to his argument making sense. It's weird how he like structured his like he had no argument. It was just him yelling this whole thing this whole time, but it was almost his way of trying to cry out for reason and someone to listen to him, even though it was like it doesn't make sense, but the production value brought that to the table. Like, so you changed
it. You wouldn't have. I've listened to that multiple times now. If the beat was not good, that would not be the case.
Yeah. So like you take the lyrics out, change them to something else, it would be an absolute bop. It would be a call to action to whatever, and it would make sense. It's like the I'm Coming Home song, right? Where everyone got behind that, like, I'm coming home. Like, it's that generational, like, bop where you're like, oh, I can get behind this. It's like the that song, Fast and the Furious, whenever that guy died, and he's like, and I'll see you again.
Right.
And everyone made that bop, and it was so generational. It has that vibe of, like, the music is so drawing, but then you add that, and to me, it's like, it's so comedy.
It is crazy.
Because it's just Kanye. It's just like the lyrics, he just made it work lyrically, even though it's saying something absolutely insane.
I think the issue is you would explain this song to somebody, and they go, oh, whatever. And then you play it for them, and it's not at all what they would have expected it to be.
Yeah,
it caught me off guard, 100%.
I don't understand, like, the whole, like, wolves thing. Like, I didn't get that. That went over my head if that was anything. Because I wasn't sure if he was trying to.
Did I miss that line? Must have.
Because I wasn't sure the people dressed in wolves. I wasn't sure if he was trying to refer.
I know what that is.
I wasn't sure if it was in the sense of, like, there's a bunch of black people in the music video, and he was trying to say that some of them are wolves and they're not standing up for, like, the group thought that he was trying to say as a group thought. I wasn't sure if that's what he was trying to allude to, but that went over my head with whatever he was trying to say it was.
I think there's two things with the Wolves. One, Kanye has a song called Wolves. I feel like he, in some sort of way, looks at himself as a wolf, a lone wolf in a lot of ways. But then, like, he's visualizing, like, hey, I don't stand alone. There's other people that feel like me that are, even black people that, like, still think like this and whatever. Hey, they're sort of, there's some wolves out there. But the other thing that I think is historically, when you look at the depiction of a wolf in media, they've used the wolf as a negative depiction of Jews for a long time.
Interesting.
So you go back to the wolf in the Little Red Riding Hood.
Mm-hmm.
That's a German folktale.
Didn't know
right,
that.
So there's a lot of that going on, and it's always been like that. You look at early Disney stuff. There's a lot of like depictions of Jewish people with the long noses, which is a traditional way that they would do that, and then later on they would redo that same cartoon and replace it with a wolf. You go, so that's the PC way of doing that. And I think obviously this song, I think he's trying to poke at Jews as much as possible.
Yeah. I think what the biggest thing I took away was he's saying the world is being controlled by the Jews, and that the media outlets, because he started talking about Twitter, right? He's saying, you guys don't read my Twitter. So I think he was saying was all these media outlets are calling me,
a Nazi.
Yeah. And he's basically like, I'm going to embrace that, and I'm going to embrace it to the highest level by saying that slogan, right? So it's like, I think that's what
I think it's 50-50.
Yeah.
I think Kanye definitely has looked at Hitler, because like, no matter what you think about Hitler, he's misunderstood to a degree, and that's probably how it turned into what he was. Same thing with Kanye, right? Like, Hitler used to be an artist. Nobody liked his art, whatever. So I think he sees similarities, and he somewhat believes in a lot of the rhetoric and certain things, but I think he believes his own version of those things, and it's not quite the same. And then I think he also is trolling to the highest degree. But specifically who he's trolling is the Jews, which is crazy because basically he's because to me at first I was like just trying to like, what is this? Why would you do this? What's the point? And here's the thing I didn't tell you. That song, so it got released. It was the #1 song on all platforms, and then it immediately got wiped from every single platform and has been deplatformed. And it's essentially like the first song to ever 100% be canceled from
everything,
anywhere.
Interesting.
This version that I just played you is available on X. I don't believe it's going to be available for much longer. I have it screen recorded, so if you would like to check it out, know what we're talking about here, it is some wild shit. Just DM me, I'll send you a link, or I'll send you the video. But I think ultimately, he's kind of like, hey, like it's just a big middle finger. Like that's all it is. It's not like, oh, I love Hitler. I mean, it might be in part, but that's not even the main thing. It's would be the most offensive thing to you guys. Yeah. It's just a big middle finger. And specifically because like, the music industry in particular,
it's like a double entendre.
There's a lot of Jewish executives and, that specifically have had control over Kanye's career. And I feel like, he has turmoil with them over the course of his career. And it's all gotten to this point to where he can't do anything, whatever. So now he's trying to figure out, what can I do for them to show their hand? And so by doing this and then having it be instantly canceled, everybody's kind of looking around like, oh.
If you say something, they'll take you off everything.
And so that's kind of the ultimate point there. And I saw a clip of Joe Rogan and Tom Segura reacting to that exactly.
I watched that episode, yeah.
And wow. Like Joe's takeaway at the end of that was like, he's not really wrong. That's crazy for that to be a public thing that people are talking about. And it all does stem from this song. So in some sort of way, there was a point that's clicking with some people. And then it needed to be controversial to garner enough attention. And I feel like there's more conversations to be had about it, but it's just very interesting. And I know one of the first lines he said, like, they froze my bank account, then they took my kids from me, right?
Yeah.
They did freeze his bank account.
They did. Yeah. 100%.
You know, and there's been a lot of that. So it's like there's something there. Is this the appropriate way to do any of this? No.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody's an adult, everybody's a grown up. We have the freedom of speech,
Yep.
you know? So at the end of the day, it is a wild situation, but you know, if you were in a bad situation, like you're a good person, let's say you're a good person,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you're surrounded by a bunch of bad people that want to hurt you, you might want to pick up a weapon and stab one. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like that's how he feels, is like backed into a corner and he doesn't have any other options. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, but now you're poking people. Now you're stabbing. It's like you have to deal with the consequences of that, i.e. deplatformed,
Yeah.
debanked, whatever it is.
think
so that's
he's-
tough.
I think he's reached the point of no return in the sense of like he either thinks he's going to die or he thinks that he's never going to come back and be able to be in the spotlight like he once was. So I think he's going to go down, but if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging and I'm going to try to take as many of you as I can with you.
Right.
So it's like, I think from what I listened to, it was very like, it was random. To me, it was just random,
Yeah.
but it made sense in the, like if you look at it for face value, you can't look at that for face value and be like, he actually is a supporter of genocide. Like to me, when I listened to it, that wasn't at all what I heard. What I heard
Right.
was kind of like what you were saying, was like a big middle finger to that industry and basically saying, like, for instance, if someone says, oh, you're a bigot, like my dad always used to tell me, like, if somebody says something about you, ask yourself, is it true? And if it's not, then just keep going, right? Because they're just trying to take you down. So for him, it was almost like, oh, you're gonna call me a bigot, then I'm the biggest bigot ever.
And that's a power move.
Yeah, and so I think that's what he was doing, is he was like, oh, you guys deplatformed, you guys took away my money, you took away my kids, you accused me of being something I'm not, and I'm going to go to the nth degree and become who you want me to be to show you how ridiculous you're being by sacrificing myself
Right.
in the public sphere. But it's weird because he's also like, there's a bunch of other stuff that he does too, but if you're looking at strictly the production value of what he did, you could kind of try to be like, oh, there's something more there than just face value.
And that's the thing, is that you really would have to break down all these layers and figure
Yeah.
out like what possible meanings or connotations of these simple things that seem random in that song too
Yeah.
are. And yeah, it's crazy. You're right. You know, it is just a big fuck you anthem, but it feels like a fuck you anthem. And that in itself, just the feeling of the song is powerful. Then you put those words on it and like you figure out like the direction that's aimed, and it's like, it's crazy. Like,
Oh yeah.
nobody wants to touch that. Nobody wants to touch that. But it's like, it exists. You know what I mean? It's not like we have to go, oh, that's the greatest piece of art or whatever. But
Yeah.
like, even in shitty art, the artist might be trying to make an artistic statement,
Yeah.
even if you don't like the whole thing. You know?
And I also don't agree. Like, I'm a very big like free speech absolutist. Like, I don't think that we should be censoring any stuff like that. I think population and community society is going to, if they don't want to listen to that, they're not going to listen to it, and it's not going to become popular, relevant, or
you should
whatever.
let people villainize things themselves.
Yeah, like you shouldn't, because this is also could not be a psyop, but like it's like he is showing an eye into the music industry. We kind of just
Right.
alluded to this, but it's like he's showing, if you go so far as to say something as extreme, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be this, but anything that's so extreme, they'll just take it down, which means you don't have freedom of speech, which means that it's only what they want you to do. So it also, to me, it's like I don't agree with any of the things in the song, and I think it was quite honestly just silly, but
Yeah.
it makes you think, okay, obviously it starts with something super extreme. Oh, we wouldn't touch the rest of your rights, but something like this, we're going to get rid of, right? And then it goes slightly down.
Right.
And then it keeps going down to where you do not have freedom of speech anymore. And it's like, no, we can control. And it's almost like it's like he's a precursor for like what
Yes.
could happen. And he was trying to, and it could not be, but like you could macro view and take a bigger look and be like, whether or not he understood it, it could be seen as a precursor for like, yeah.
So some things like have happened because of that. Not like major things, but like now there's just a bunch of people like looking at that for the first time, because it's like they never would have touched any of that stuff. They'll hear Kanye talking about it, but now that it's a song, it's a tangible like thing they'll listen to. It's like, and it's different than they thought it would sound like.
Yeah.
They'll start to look at it different, think about things a little bit, maybe like start looking into Hitler and all this. And he threw like Hitler at the end of that speech, or at the end of the song, giving a speech or whatever. And it's all in German, but when this came out, X was all just like, everything I saw was like, what is he saying in the end? What is it? People are interested now what he was saying in that. Why would he use this specific section? And then people are translating it, figuring out what it means. And then just like how this song is different than how you thought it would sound, when you actually hear Hitler talking English, it's a little different than how you thought it would be as well. And so people are having that conversation. So it's interesting to see. It definitely sparks some interest in that whole thing, which is a dangerous thing, right?
Sure.
But the other thing is, you know, a lot of people are just curious. They want to explore, you know, hey, what's going on? Is this the truth? Is this a whatever? And there's nothing wrong with research, especially history. Like, what are you talking about, you know?
Yeah.
When it becomes your ideals and your actions, that's when it can be an issue, but that's just a moral issue no matter what. But I think people are interested in that because of this, and it also makes me wonder, has he been, and is this just a psyop to get people onto that ideology so that you can villainize those people, push people away, and then further strip our rights? Because you know, I would feel like they're probably mostly targeting right-wing males, 18 to 30.
The people who want to do research and investigate stuff is
Right.
the people. So it's like, if you see a song like that and you say, nope, not going to listen to it, right? It's like, okay, you're on the good side. But if you're like, interesting, there is some audio and a piece of quote unquote literature, I'm just going to read it, right? Like, you can buy Mein Kampf on Amazon.
You could.
And you could just be like, hey, I just want to read it. Like, I'm just going to read it. It's just words on a piece of paper. I want to get inside that guy's head, see what he's thinking. But they want to be like, oh, nope, you bought that. Oh, nope, you listened to that. That means that you are this person. Yeah, 100%. They could use that to try to crush because they put you in a box. They want to put you in a box.
Yeah.
Like, of course you're wanting to buy that or listen to that song because that's what you are. And it's like that's what they want to do. Like, they don't.
I think they want people to self-identify as like they're almost just how like people would say that black people reclaim the N-word and it's now theirs, but it's also a different meaning, a different connotation. I feel like they're trying to get people, specifically white people, but just people in general and males in general, to like reclaim Nazi as being a new thing. It's different than that. It's this, whatever.
Interesting.
But that's the trap. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. But I just thought the whole thing is interesting. I had to share that because, like, what the fuck is that? You know?
Yeah.
So
That's called crazy.
it is.
But it's interesting to see. Like, I think it's a willing downfall that he's gone so far past the brink that he's like, I don't care. I'm going down anyway. I can't change the past, because he alludes to it. He says, they took my money, they took my kids. So he's basically saying it's over for me. I can't go backward and get what I had. So I'm just gonna go to this super dark place, and it's sad to see for sure, because like, it's disturbing, but it's also like interesting in a
It's a
sense.
mental health study.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's what that I think to me is what people are gonna learn from this, is like, oh, this is the result of when you're so famous and you have everything, and the system says, no, we don't want you anymore. This is where you could end up. So,
What does crashing out look like for a billionaire? You know?
yeah,
I think that's what we're seeing. Like,
yeah, it's fighting against everything that made you who you are, because it's like, you played the game, you knew the system, and it's like, you want to then expose the thing that made you what you became, but you know that they aren't going to let you fully expose them.
well, okay, so it's really interesting, and I don't want to get too deep into like all the Kanye stuff or whatever, but there's a line in that song we just listened to, which is a standout line to me, because it's the most what the fuck out of everything. Because we know people talk, oh, Kanye's a Nazi. That's what we were expecting on the song.
Yeah.
The most surprising thing to me is the line where he says, I'm a cuck. I like to watch people fuck on my bitch. Did you hear that line?
Mm-hmm. That was in the beginning, I think.
Yeah, it was like the second or third line. It was crazy. And it just snuck that right in there, and it's like, what the fuck? Keep it moving. You're listening to the other stuff. But that line in particular, and then I guess there's been a lot of recent, you know, Kanye's come out and said he's gay.
He's come out and said everything in the past month.
He said he's gay. There's an alleged relationship that he had with Jeffree Star, apparently, and like all this weird stuff that, you know, he's thrown in there. And to me and to a lot of listeners, like, it's less surprising that Kanye would be a Nazi than he would be gay. Yeah, he was wearing the pink polo and all this type of stuff early on, but he sort of represents a core principle of hip hop that a lot of people would agree. I'm not gonna say it's homophobic, but a lot of people would say that that's what it is. But it's very masculine oriented, like I am this more so than being not that. But you know, that's just how it goes, right? There's been a lot of that throughout hip hop, and I feel like Kanye comes from that time and is bred through that. And there hasn't been, you know, there was never any previous, like when he's in Chicago, there's no like Chicago boyfriend from back in the day that's like, oh yeah, this is what, like they would have come out, they would have been all this stuff. It's almost like this fake, never really existed gay stuff that he's like, yeah, you know, this happened here or there, you wouldn't know about this. And Jeffree Star, somebody who's probably super irrelevant to most people, would latch onto this. And if that's the narrative Kanye wants to put out there, he's not going to stop that narrative. He's going to go, yeah, that's a good one. I feel like he's incorporating this gay thing in an attention-seeking way, but also to hold up a mirror in a certain type of way, because I feel like he looks at the LGBT community and says they get away with a lot of things. They're able to push lines because of that. They're protected because of this. And now he's like, yeah, I'm a Nazi, blah, 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 but I'm gay. Don't touch me.
So he's basically saying like, I'm like you. Right. You can't come at me, because then if you come at me, then you're just a hypocrite.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a form of protection in my eyes. And I don't actually believe Kanye's gay. Like, you know?
Well, like you go back to COVID. Like, but something happened, right? When he lost his kids and he lost his wife, something happened where he just went AWOL.
Yeah, he did.
And it's like, I don't know what, like, he's trying to seek attention, but from what and from who? Because he went from Trump supporter to him and Kim, like the whole Trump supporter thing. And then that relationship ended to then I'm going to go to the master's seminary in California and make a bunch of so-called worship music. And then he went from that to I'm going to parade my wife around naked in front of everybody, to then, oh, I'm a Nazi, to then, oh, you know, the song he made and like all this stuff. Like, it's like there's this clear, it's like, so what's next? It's like,
it is crazy that you mentioned he made that Jesus is King album like 2 years ago or whatever, and that was here. That is wild.
Yeah. And so it's like, for me, it's like he's clearly seeking attention, but it's like, from what? Because it's like he doesn't give a rip about his fans or people that have been with him forever, right? He doesn't give a crap about his what's the word? His
persona?
Legacy persona, because he's clearly thrashing it in the mud. So it's like he knows he can't get Kim back because he's making it too big a fool about himself. Like, she's not going to go back to you. Obviously, you're a flight risk, and I'm not going to put my kids around you. So it's like, what's he trying to get? So that's the thing I don't understand. Is like, it's like I feel bad for the guy, but it's like there has to be a reason deep down. Like, it might not be logical to me, but to him there has to be a reason why he's doing this, and I just can't understand or think of what that reason could be.
I can't quite figure it out either, but I feel like it's just a martyr situation where he's like, look, you know, yeah, I'm past whatever I can do here. I might as well just crash out and do all this stuff, but in that process, illuminating a lot of things that are going on, calling out things that are going to happen, showing you all the stuff, get rid of me. But then when it happens, I already told you, and you see it and you can't ignore it, whatever it is. But mostly talking about his children and the Kardashians there, because that's the other thing he's talking about in that song mostly. And he kind of thinks that the Jews are controlling the Kardashians, that are controlling his children, and that's his roundabout way of doing it. And that's probably the main reason why he's fucked the Jews, I think. It's that and the music industry stuff. But it's like, it is crazy that that's the angle that he thinks it is. But whatever the Kardashian situation is, I'm not saying it's Jews controlling them, but they are an entity that operates in a certain way. There's a lot of different types of energies and people around, and having children in that environment, I don't think is good or kosher to my standards. I wouldn't want my kid, you know, being raised by the Kardashians or any of this stuff. Like, I think it's a little like they're gonna, be exposed to a lot of stuff in the wrong light and have the wrong impressions about a lot of things and get taken advantage of on purpose because of those things, you know? And so I think he's sort of airing some of that out and, you know, watch what happens with his kids. You know, we'll just see what happens with his kids. Cause it's like, you've seen where they start to like turn north into like, they're starting to sexualize her and like,
Oh yeah, that's the plan. You have to, but it's so weird. Like, does he think he can get them back? Is he thinking I can open their eyes? Because what if it's a false hope, right? Like, what if he's convinced himself, hey, I got to go crazy. I got to show her that I truly love her and that I'm not crazy. But the way to do that is like to expose the system that she's in. But the only way for her to pay attention is if I go AWOL, like, which is insane to think about because it's like something happened and we don't know necessarily what happened, but like they split up for a reason. He was going crazy, but was like, yeah, that I just don't understand that. Like something must have happened, and the either okay, so this is what I'm thinking. He has so much regret and so much shame for something that he did in order to lose them that he's trying to fight against that and giving himself false hope of trying to earn them back through some weird way. Or I told you so is the other one. So it's like he's either trying to earn them back, or he's like, screw you, you're dead to me, Kim. But I'm gonna show you that I was right the whole time, and that, you know, they just have control over you or something like that. Like that's the only thing I could think of, honestly.
No clue.
Yeah, that's a psychological study.
Yeah, it is.
For sure.
But interesting topic nonetheless.
Yeah, dude, yeah. I mean, I have something way off topic that
go for it.
I kind of want to talk about. But so as we were filming this, there was a giant tornado warning.
Oh, yeah.
That came through. And I know last episode or a couple episodes ago, we talked about the possible ability for governments to use, you know, direct energy as weapons in regarding to lightning and Tesla coils and stuff like that, if they can harness that. I wonder if they're working on trying to harness like wind. Because I know we talked about them harnessing rain, but like if you can harness the weather, but then if you can harness the wind and send wind at people.
Why couldn't you? I mean, it's just temperature.
I know, but that's the crazy thing is like how, like, imagine if you had the ability to affect temperature change, which you could do with a nuke, or
you definitely could.
But like in the sense of how do you do it on a small scale to affect temperature?
But they could do it with like in, you know, a lot of people chemtrails.
Yeah.
Anything like that. Putting particles in the air that are not supposed to be there, and because they're not supposed to be there, they influence the atmosphere in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
You put this type of particle over here, this type of particle over here. The winds are naturally drifting together. When it hits there, like you just know it's going to, at this time, this precise degree location, we'll get a twister going.
That'd be crazy. Because I mean,
Doesn't seem that hard.
I started thinking about it because it's like, it's so random, right? You don't, like, a tsunami comes out of nowhere, a tornado comes out of nowhere. We have the technology to now detect said things, but it's not like we can see it a month in advance and be like, oh, this is going to cause this, which is going to cause this, which is going to cause a tornado. But like if they found out a way to just spawn something just like in the midst of something, like that's crazy. Because it's easy to spawn a tsunami, just put a nuke in the ocean and then just create these massive waves. But like, could you do that with wind? Like that would be just so interesting.
I bet you could, dude. Like just imagine there's some sort of like, it's not a nuke, it's a miniature nuke.
Yeah.
And you just like whatever it does, it's just going to, you know, like just that nuclear explosion has to like instantly cause that change. And it's exactly wherever that goes. So, I mean, that's one version of it. You could probably do the same thing somehow through like a magnetic field or other things like that, or just introducing electricity into the air to superheat a certain area. You know, like lightning, something like that. But what if it was like, you know, like one of these super beam, come on, we're always talking about it.
Oh, the Antarctica?
No. The, you know, just a super energetic weapon of power. What do you call those?
Oh, direct energy weapon?
Yeah, direct energy weapon. Like just fire one of those on like stun phaser setting or whatever into the air and just, yeah, like that seems like it would work to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like,
don't know.
why wouldn't it? It's literally just heat it up somehow in a fast succession when it's surrounded by the other temperature, or like a cooler temperature. So, yeah, I don't know what.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like how they could do something like that. But anyway, to me it was like that would be a huge weapon. Because okay, first of all, you have rain. Like they know how to sow like clouds to form rain, right? So it's
Yeah.
like if you're using it as a weapon, you can use it to flood your army. You know, to make it so that this side gets flooded out and their troops get stuck in the mud and stuff like that. Snow in the wintertime, you can over snow something, right? Like you send drones. Like this is not going to be people, but like you send drones in to seed the clouds. That way it's like, okay, there's supposed to be a 3 foot snowstorm. It turns into 9 feet, right? And you just absolutely cover, which puts them out of capacity. They can't do anything. So it's like, what if you could do the same thing with tornadoes, but like they would have to do something like the seeding is like what I can't get my head around. Like, how do you seed wind? But they have so much technology. Like we were watching the Doppler radar for them just picking up the tornado.
Yeah.
They have so many ways to track things that change that they could be doing tests and experiments all the time with stuff and finding out, okay, how does that affect, different wind patterns, or does it affect something, or airplanes, like does that affect something? Like,
Now, does the wind affect the sea, or does the sea affect the wind?
I would have to
I
say
think the wind affects the sea, right?
Yeah, because the sea is just so low.
I don't know. I was just thinking if you maybe control one, you can sort of control the other to a degree.
That's interesting too, because like sea currents, like what controls a sea current?
Probably a magnetic field in the ocean.
It has to be something like that, because it's like what's causing, because obviously gravity causes streams to come towards the ocean from like the mountains, right? Because it's like pulling the water down and it's creating the valleys and stuff. But like in the ocean, there's riptide currents that's caused obviously by like the waves and the swells, but like deep in the ocean, like there's currents like hundreds
Like a
of feet.
highway almost.
Yeah, and it's like, where's that coming from? And it's like, is that coming from tectonic plates shifting? But then it's like, why are the currents aren't ever changing.
They don't really.
It's like they're all necessarily going the same ways. It's so weird to think about.
Yeah.
It has to be electronic, like the magnetic poles, because if they're all going the same way, then it would make sense.
But if it was magnetic poles, wouldn't you think it would be like just a straight current somewhere, or like the same shape going from north to south, or like some sort of congruency
Yeah.
from the side that's pulling? But it seems very random and all over the place, like just some squiggly lines in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a interesting one though. Yeah, currents are cool. Yeah, we know so little about the ocean. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Drone technology. I think in the next 5 years, someone's going to be like, here's this we talked about it before, but underwater drone technology where they just discover everything. But they're not going to let us know if, what's the shark, the giant shark, like Megalodon, Leviathan, whatever it is. Like they're not going to let us know that thing's real. They're just going to hide that for sure.
Yeah.
They probably already know that it's real.
You think Godzilla's real?
So Godzilla is interesting because of when it was created. Huh?
Keep going. I was just going to say they keep nuking outside Japan all the time and they're doing tests, but
yeah, but it's interesting to think of like when it was created, why is that someone's thought process? Like like it's such a random thought, like a giant something. And the only thing I could think of is that is somehow created, kind of like the two AIs we were talking about, the East and the West AI. If somehow both AIs found a way to create these mammoth structures to then just rise and just be created and then just fight each other because they're so big. Like it just like...
Wait, they're the AIs, or they just like...
The AIs can find out ways to create these giant beings. Because think about it, like AI isn't just limited to technology. AI can also figure out cells and birthing, and through complex calculation, if we're talking about nuclear energy, you're not really running out of energy. So it has infinite ability to process. And if you're worried about overheating, you just send that sucker up into space with a nuclear reactor.
Imagine you took DNA from every single species of animal on the earth gave it to an AI in isolation where nobody knows it's running every single type of
Yep.
experiment it could want, combination, altering DNA. Yeah, what would they come out with? It'd be some crazy something like that.
Yeah. It could, I mean, at some point, an AI could be like, okay, if I breed these two animals together and then I add this DNA into this, I can create its own animal.
Imagine, because like a lot of people like to believe in giants as being a thing, and there's all these stories about like titans roaming the earth, and what if it was like, because I'm not saying Megalodon or Godzilla are real, but what if those sort of things are just like you take some giant DNA and give it to a shark or a lizard or Komodo dragon or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, because it makes you think that there has to be a DNA, some part of the DNA strand controls size, because you have humans that are huge and humans that are tiny, tiny.
Yeah.
So it's like you have professional basketball players that are 7'4", 7'5", and it's like, okay, they have to have a gene that allows them to get that big, but to still function and to still have coordination, right? So it's not a baby deer. It's like you got guys playing for millions of dollars who are coordinated, and it's like, yeah, they could have injury, but they're still able to carry their body weight. So it makes you wonder, okay, there has to be a DNA strand out there that if an AI did give that to, like, for instance, if it found the biggest DNA from this shark and then was able to get it from a killer whale or able to get it from some whale that was close enough to that species, if it was able to create a giant, like, animal, like...
Now imagine if cancer is just some sort of repressed version of our DNA that was, we used to be big giants or whatever. Have then repressed that part of our DNA, but then occasionally something can activate that in just one cell, causing it, infinite growth in a tumor, right? Something like that.
That would be interesting, because cancer is like a bad cell that like is malfunctioning according to what every other cell should be doing. That's technically like cancer. Is like you have one cell that regenerated wrong and starts reproducing the wrong types of cells, so therefore it's cancer. It's doing something that's in chaos. But like cancer, I wonder if it also could be, what if a cancerous cell was not chaos, but it was just something different? So it was like growing something that wasn't chaos, but that was like, how do I explain it? Let's say a fish started growing DNA of an alligator inside of it. It still would be cancerous by our definition, but it wouldn't be chaos. It would be, okay, it's trying to grow something else inside this one thing. So it's like you could say, okay, if that's cancer, then what was that original DNA thing, or what was that cell trying to grow into?
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to like remove somebody's cancer and then let it grow, or try to foster turning it into what it's trying to turn into, see what kind of form it takes or interesting qualities. I'm sure they do this. I'm sure there's research on this stuff, but
the amount of research that happens that nobody knows about is actually insane to me.
I just don't buy it a lot of the time. Like, I don't think they're I'm sure there's somebody working on that right now doing that type of research, but I don't think they're like doing it for any good reason or have a goal or have made too much progress. I don't know if they're looking for the right thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these are just bullshit studies to say we're working on something. And to prop up like the, cancer profit ring that goes on. So,
oh yeah,
I don't know. They always do that thing where they're like, every couple of years, they're like, something new gives you cancer. They're like, they were trying to say wearing shoes gives you cancer because everybody that has cancer wears shoes. Common denominator, shoes cause cancer. And that's science nowadays. So I don't believe these studies a lot of the time, but I also like, I don't know, every now and again there's one that's like, yeah, obviously they're working on something interesting, but you're right, nobody talks about those ones. They're like, they always seem to be underfunded or privately funded, or like, yeah, I used to be funded 5 years ago, but nobody would fund me, so I had to fund this thing. I'm separate from whatever. And they seem like if you're really a true scientist, meaning you're funded, you're like in the ring of what we talk about, what we study. And then the interesting things are just like outside of that, but they don't have publicity at all. Nobody's going to write about them. And so until they do something, like if they made some sort of miracle cure and gave it to somebody, like nobody's gonna come and find that. Like they could post it on the internet.
Yeah,
It's not gonna do anything.
I think we talked about previously how they made that $21 trillion underground city for the super wealthy in case collapse of society happened.
Yeah.
If they have that much money to do that in secret, they have the cure to cancer.
Yeah. And AIDS. You know Magic Johnson?
Yeah.
What's up with that? What's up with that?
All they have to say is, oh, yeah, this person's fighting, even though they already gave him the cure for it. And that person can then be the spokesperson to be like, hey, there's hope out there.
Okay, but, you know, and I could be wrong, but so AIDS is different than HIV.
I have no idea the difference.
This is I believe this is what I've been told, and I believe this is the truth. Is that if you have HIV, you can either be active or non-active, basically meaning that the HIV is spreadable or not. If you have AIDS, which is what HIV transforms into, you can't have sex with anybody that doesn't already have AIDS, especially without telling them. And if you do, it's a felony, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so Magic Johnson had AIDS, but he's having sex with people nowadays.
Oh, so
so
was
like it's kind of like, nah, you got the cure for AIDS. Nobody wants to talk about it. In fact, funny enough, the only thing I know about is that anybody really even talks about it, other than like a joke here or there, maybe, is Kanye West in the song "Roses" off of Late Registration. He says, "If Magic Johnson got the cure for AIDS," next line. But that's crazy because that was like back in 2010 maybe or something like that.
Yeah.
So probably earlier than 2008.
But like, why would they wouldn't tell us if they found the cure for anything? Like if they found the cure for 10 extra years, like they're not going to tell anybody because it's not profitable.
Yeah.
Like they could have the actual, there could be something in an oak tree that's like, oh, that cures cancer right there. Like this thing that's in this oak tree, you eat this for a week and you're cancer free. Like,
well, the big question too is cancer a man-made thing? I.e., we've developed things to specifically cause cancer, and we're not told the truth about what they are or how present they are in certain things. And
I don't think that we created cancer. I just think that, like, kind of like you were saying, we know something that can cause cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So we purposely not experiment, but make people subject to these things that then give them cancer. So therefore, we can make sure that we scare. Okay, so this gets into a whole different thing.
Let's go.
So you have health insurance, right? Which is, some sort of a scam. You have life insurance, which is like some sort of a scam. So life insurance, it's like you technically shouldn't need life insurance if you have a big enough family to take care of you, right? Because if you do everything right, business right, you don't have to worry about it. Health, if you have really good health and you don't do anything stupid, you don't really need health insurance. Same thing with a car. If you drive really safe, you don't really need a car because if somebody hits you, they're liable for it. You don't have to pay for anything. But it's like they're using fear as a tactic to scare everybody into these things. So with health insurance, they can just say, oh, you could, if God forbid something happens to you, you get cancer or something, you have coverage, right? Where is like this person, based on their lifestyle, you don't need health insurance because you're super healthy. Like, so why would you need it? Maybe you have accident insurance, in case you're sawing and you saw your finger off. But like, do you really need health insurance? And it's like, I'm starting to realize health insurance was created because they know what food you're eating. They know, okay, we can make money because this person's going to come get pills from us. And then that health insurance is just a broker for the big pharma companies and like the big hospital companies. Yeah. Like it's just a broker to make sure that everyone gets their money and gets their share.
I agree. And I also think the same thing about pretty much every form of insurance under the sun, including concealed carry insurance, which it sounds like such a good idea. Just to go off on a slight little mini tangent. It sounds like a great idea. If you don't know, it's insurance that they sell to people that carry guns. And if it's basically like you pay like $8 a month or something like that.
There's levels.
Yeah, there's different levels, but basically you always have a lawyer on retainer if in any case you have to use your firearm. You have one on standby that's a firearms lawyer, so they're more equipped than other people. But the big thing is that pretty much if you're an A1 lawyer, you're not going to be in that little circuit of people.
Yeah.
So by default, it's at least mid-tier lawyers. And then you're not having a personal relationship with this guy because you just had to use your gun, and now all of a sudden he's representing you and he's recommended. So you're going to trust this. You don't really have an established relationship. You're paying for it a lot. Most people will never need this. And you know, if you use your gun, you should be in the right, and it should be a pretty easy case, shut and dry. And now if you should have your own lawyer on standby, and that's your own private thing, and you do have a relationship with them. So that's my opinion on that. Anyway, back to insurance, being scams, all this type of stuff.
Yeah. So I think that because I started thinking about it with life insurance, right? Talk about a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like life insurance, there's technically full-term life insurance, which is like up until you die. Or sorry, not up until you die, up until a certain age that they deem. So it's like 75 or 80. So if you're over that, it's like, oh, we are expecting you to die. So it's like you don't get it there. But what if someone's expecting to live until they're 100? It's like, why don't I get those last 20 years? That 20 years is a long time. Like, why don't I get that covered?
They take better care of their body than the other people that you're stacking the average to.
So the biggest thing is like, oh, well, think about your family, right? And it's like, first of all, I'm going to be dead. Like the biggest thing for me is like, okay, first of all, I'm going to be dead. And the people that they're truly are suckers for, right, is like those people who are not competent in spending money, and the people who are like, oh crap, like if something happens, they're going to need money. But if you already have a bunch of money, right, or you're smart and you're not in debt and you die, it's like, yeah, that's sad, but you know your spouse is going to go on and be okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like they almost use it as like, oh, if something happens, it's like, well, they're going to get $1 million. And it's like, okay, but we already have $1 million. So it's like, why would I need it? So it's like insurance is only for those in a certain class, was to create fear and to get more money from them because it's like, oh, this could happen to you.
Right.
It's like the super rich people, they don't have insurance. They just go to a hospital. Like you think Elon Musk has insurance? Like
no.
He doesn't have insurance. He doesn't have life insurance. He doesn't have.
Well, I don't know. I do think they do actually. I think they have a different insurance policy that's within their own family. It's almost like them having their own trust that they're insured from.
So I don't believe that the common person has the same insurance as some people at certain levels.
Right.
Like their insurance makes sense because they're talking about some big thing, and it's not for fear. It's for protection for their family, whereas ours is fear-based. So it's like, in case something happens to you, here's that life insurance. In case a car accident, here's this car insurance. Where it's like these bigger groups of people, I don't think they have the same type of insurance.
I think also like Social Security too. All of these things, you get through, like imagine going through the world's longest line. And then you get to the end of the line, realize you didn't really get a payout. Are you going to go back to the beginning of that line to tell anybody? No, you're just going to take your silent exit and just call it good. At least you got paid something, or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
That's how they get away with it. Because in a lot of cases, all of these like your life insurance, your Social Security, all this stuff's starting to hit at the end of your life, like all in the same, 10, 20 years there. And so you get there, it's only old people that talk to each other basically at that point. So they kind of know what's going on, but it's also not going to be the situation for the people that they would go tell, if they were going to tell people anyway. So like young people, it's completely different. And so they're able to get through just the length that it takes to communicate the actual end goal based what's being sold. It's just not viable for people to communicate that. And so they profit off of that.
Yeah. I also started, since you said that, it makes me wonder, like, okay, we have Social Security. Why don't we pay a portion of the taxes into, like, why not make it like law? Like, why not make health insurance a law that you have to pay $10 out of your paycheck to health insurance, or or into life insurance or car insurance? Like, why is that privatized in the sense, like, if it's so important, why isn't it like Social Security?
Because they need the corporation to be the bridge between the people and the government,
Correct.
and that's the middleman you were talking
Yeah.
about.
So it's funny because Social Security isn't. And I think the
Right.
reason it isn't is because the amount of growth and money that people would have in their account if it was privatized would be just like trading stocks today.
Mhm.
But that's too risky for people to pull money out, right? So it's like they can't. They say, "Oh no, we'll keep your money over here. It'll be here when you're hit that age, right?" And they're hoping that you die, because that's the other thing too. I'm pretty sure, I could be so wrong, and it'd be really funny if I was, but I'm pretty sure if you die, I don't think your next of kin or whoever gets that Social
No,
Security.
you're right. Because my grandpa died before he got to collect his, and that was it.
Yeah. So it's like they know, okay, we'll take 60 because the average death is going to happen at 64. So they paid in, and then we get to keep their money, but also they've taken loans out against that money. So that
Of
money,
course.
it's not a pot of money. That money is like a bank. They take that money, they loan it out, they invest in it, and they're hoping, okay, this amount of people. And again, they have giant AI robots or whatever finding simulation and finding probabilities and percentages of how much money are we going to get back.
Mhm.
Like we're not actually going to have to pay out these 100 million people. We're only going to have to pay out 40 million because some of them are going to die and they're not going to be able to claim that Social Security. And it's like, what's so secure about that? I don't know. It just begs the question, like, why is that not privatized, but everything else is privatized?
It is a great question. I don't have the answer either, but it makes you think.
Yeah.
They're like, because we know there's something about Social Security. Like, it's obviously a scam. It's obvious, but what is the goal there? Why is it set up the way it is? I have zero clue on any of it.
Yeah. I think it was just another way to get taxes from people. And if you follow the trends, obviously there's a gas tax. The amount of things we get taxed on double is insane.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, like, let's say I buy a phone. I got to pay the tax on it, right? And let's say I sell it, right? And I make a profit on that. I got to pay a tax on that. And then that person, if they sell that, they got to pay a tax on that. It's like the amount of things that you have to pay taxes on is crazy to me.
Or just like even the fact that, like, okay, you buy that phone, you pay that sales tax. I feel like that's the tax. Whatever you do with that phone, whatever money that eventually turns into, you shouldn't be paying the tax on. Because it's like, say if you sold that phone, which then you're gonna have to pay that tax. But then you buy crypto, you invest.
Yeah.
You're gonna get taxed on that.
Capital gains tax.
And it's just ridiculous. Like, no matter what you're getting taxed for using money. At the end of the day, that's what you're getting taxed on. And it's all convenience.
But the biggest scam is like, okay, we have to give the people a false perception of hope. Okay, so what are we going to say that we're using that tax money for? Because we can't just tax them and then just have all this money and have $34 trillion of your money and we get to decide what we want to do. We have to give it out. We got to do stuff with it. And that's what's it called? The
Federal Reserve? What? No.
The untaxable 3-letter agent, not
the IRS?
Oh gosh. I am blanking on what I'm thinking of. The nonprofit organizations. It's like, that's like, think about it, because you can't be profitable, but you can pay salaries out through those. So it's like, that's where all the money's going, is it's getting dispersed to all these tiny nonprofits, and then that money is then getting filtered back to the people that control it.
And that is why people out there, your church is under attack. They've taken over your churches. They've turned them into nonprofit organizations, and they are running scams on you.
There's a lot of...
Just read the Bible if you're into that.
There's a lot of like big organizations that are just like, they just pretend to be something that they're not, and then they prey on your...
They take advantage.
They take advantage of people, and they say, oh, well, you're going to give... Like, for instance, like the amount of hurricane relief fund or this thing or FEMA, right? Like, so FEMA, for instance, is like, okay, they take all this tax money and they give it to FEMA, right? And it's like FEMA is supposed to give this money to people who have been affected by natural disasters, but then they're putting up all their agents in these 5-star hotels doing their computer work out of it. And it's like, but so where's the money going? Same thing with the homeless population. It's like, oh, we're giving this money to the homeless population. There should be not a whole lot of homeless people right now if that's the case. But it's
There
like
shouldn't be.
they're filtering the money. And that's the thing, is like, at the end of the day, there has to be some sort of organism of brain thought, some giant equation solver calculator that's like, it shows you, if you take the money from here, how do you divert it without somebody seeing it? And it's like a giant money laundering thing. Is like,
It is.
at the end of the day, how are these politicians getting so much money just starting out? Like, how is California taxing? How are they taking 300? I don't know how much it was, $3 billion, $30 billion, and putting it towards homelessness. And homelessness is the worst it's ever been. Like, where's the money going?
You know what I think about that too is that homelessness, I mean, it's a choice to a lot of people, and they're making that choice actively because basically what they're doing is what the government does, but back to the government. And so it seems unfair to people that are playing the game the correct way, paying their taxes, doing all this type of stuff. But in their way, the government's ripping those people off too. They're just dumb enough to comply with all this stuff, go with the rules, do all this stupid stuff. Like, do whatever you want. Just don't get caught doing any of that stuff. And then take advantage of every single thing the government does. And it's like, they know that the government needs these people. So by keeping that position, they're in a power position. So it's almost like you have people, a community of homeless people that then get to decide, like, hey, what are we going to do? What's our pull? What are we going to ask for? So now people that would never have any control in anything, they would just be somebody's employee, you know? They all of a sudden have power and can demand things in a certain way. And then the way that the government turns a blind eye, they can then expand territory like a gang or something like that, you know? And if you go to these places, these big homeless camps, like, they are, in a lot of cases, very well run and organized and militant, more than you'd expect.
Oh, yeah.
And they communicate in weird, interesting ways. They've got a million different tricks, or, you know, like, if you just look at the way that they're living with like Netflix and hot tubs, and like, that's not the homeless person of 20 years ago. It is not. It's somebody who is committed to the role of a homeless person, and they're playing it to the max strength. And to see like the effect that's had too, like, look at California, you know. I mean, that's just one of multiple factors, but I feel like had the homeless population not been there, they would have clung to the woke thing a little bit more, you know, because it wouldn't have been like, if woke was comfortable, people wouldn't mind it so much. They'd accept it. Yeah. But all of a sudden, when this woke creates discomfort and like, we can't even live here and all this whatever, that's when it starts to click with people. But I think they almost strategically pushed everybody out of California with the homeless people, and then they're going to blame it on the woke agenda. I don't know. But it seems like another scam to me.
Yeah. So something else that I think is like, we can see every so often is there's this big thing, like some crisis. You have homeless population crisis, whatever. Some crisis comes out that gives them a reason to put money into this thing and then siphon and launder it back out to them, right? The next biggest thing,
Soros.
The next big thing that they're doing, or I've seen come up, they always try to do it, but the whole reparations for slavery thing, where they want to tax people currently that had nothing to do with slavery and repay basically every single person who's black, like a reparation for like basically for not even being affected by slavery, but like down the road affected. Like, oh, well, I had to live in this part of town, and because this part of town was affected by this time and this time, and that goes back to slavery. So it's like someone said that they were like looking for $14 trillion, which I don't know where you're going to get that money.
Well, also, like, dude, that's a cop-out, because that's not real reparations, if anything. And also, you promised these people 40 acres and a mule, not my tax dollars. So I don't know what you're talking about. The people that say, you know, like, just trace it back to where we go, hey, 40 acres and a mule. Okay, who's responsible for that? Where does that come from? All this stuff. But people nowadays that have no attachment to that aren't even related to anybody that had any involvement in that, and are playing an active role in this system, you know.
But like,
that's
so
just being targeted.
The thing I'm thinking is, okay, same thing with the homeless population. They get, let's say it was $300 billion in California, right? to fix homelessness. It wasn't fixed, right? You don't know where that money went. Same thing with this. You did $14 trillion. Does it really fix it? What do we do if it doesn't fix it? What do we do if all those people, they don't get the money? Because let's say you say $14 trillion and these people don't have the money. What happens if they run out of the money? What happens if they go gamble it? Is it the casino's fault? Like, and these people don't have the money. Let's say they don't get the money and the money gets laundered and back around, right? So for me, it's like there is no solution. Money doesn't solve that problem.
Even the stimulus checks was like, hey, let's make everything, bad and unobtainable and whatever. But then let's also like make everything suck so that basically everybody spent their money on stuff that wasn't supposed to be spent on.
Yeah.
People were buying like drug dealers are buying like, drugs to sell. You've got people, using their money to scam other people for their checks and like all this weird stuff. But somewhere along the lines, that money wasn't going where it was supposed to. Even if it did go to things like toilet paper or whatever, like it's, again, just still going to them because they've probably like, toilet paper is going to be, we're going to invest in that right before, however it works, there's always some sort of catch, and it does always, they put it out, but then it comes right back to us, and that's all they needed was for us to touch it for a second.
So do you know what the stimulus checks actually, where the money came from? A lot of people don't know this.
Maybe if you jog my memory, but not off the top.
So stimulus checks were your future tax credits from your tax return that you were going to get. So you had to pay the money back, and they didn't tell anybody that. So whenever you do your tax return, if you get a return, right, it's a negative balance that the government owes you, right? So let's say you got a $1,200 tax return or stimulus check, the total amount the whole time during COVID. And let's say that you were to get $1,200 back on your tax return, it would just cancel out and be like, oh, thanks. We gave you that money, but we wanted to have it back. So it's basically that. So a lot of people didn't know that. They thought it was just free money.
Yeah.
But everyone had to pay it back. But when everyone goes and does their TurboTax, they don't know what's happening. So it's like, oh, I had to pay taxes this year? Yeah. Because it was baked into the cake. You just didn't know. Because everyone was like, we're giving you money. We're going to shock the economy. They knew what they're doing. They're not going to give everybody money and ruin the economy. No, they knew that they were going to get that money back. But this is the ticker, is like they put that money into the society to jumpstart the economy. Who actually got the money is these big corporations. So it's like you got this money. You didn't know what it was for. You thought it was free money. But now you actually have to pay it back. And it's like, who profited? The government, because they got the taxes from everything you spent. And then these corporations got that money. And then you have to then pay back that. So basically everyone got a 0% loan that they didn't know that they got and they had to pay it back.
It is insane.
Unless you had a good CPA that knew a way around
the number of layers and hoops to jump through to figure out any of this and really like calculate how much they're ripping you off. It's ridiculous. Like you'll never be able to figure that out. The fact that we pay taxes so many different ways and that you have to do your taxes at the end of the year and tell them how much you owe them when they know, and they'll just go, no, we're going to audit you. Actually, you owe this, and just say whatever. Anyway, it's like, that's bullshit. When you buy something, it shouldn't be like, okay, like you should that tax should be attached at the door, and then there's nothing else. It's baked into the price. We know what it is, and you are going to send that money to the government. Yeah. Whoever's store it is.
It'd be a very interesting documentary to see if some person traced from like January 1st to December 31st, like every single thing they had to pay tax on, from like if you had a property tax, a gas, like how much gas tax is in your area, like every single thing and then see how much you actually spend. I say it's over 60% of your total income is just taxes. Man. Which is crazy.
The fact you wouldn't even notice that would be crazy.
But this is why it's interesting, right? It's because what was the Revolutionary War about, right?
Tax. Yeah. Tax. See and that one gets me.
And it's going back, right? And so that goes back to the whole grok conversation I was talking about, is like, at what point does the American people say, you've taken advantage of us again, and we want to be not taxed anymore? It's crazy, right?
I don't know. I think problems like that started a long time ago. Like, why is New England called New England?
Yeah, probably.
Let
'cause
that go. Let that go.
Yeah, we're
You know?
not no England anymore.
So I think there's always been like a lingering sort of like, you call it a shadow government or whatever, or something that would manifest into that. But just like non-patriotic Americans living in America, pretending to be one, and just, over time, like where that's ended up is we're not the America we're supposed to be.
You want to go so deep, this will be insane. Okay.
Sure.
This is a long rabbit hole. We pay taxes to the United States government. The United States government then takes money and gives it to other countries as like, oh, here, you're in the middle of a war, and then that country gets it. Does that country launder it to a different country, and that country is just the one taking in all
You're
the
damn
money?
right.
And then so like to me, I'm like, what if England, or not? Maybe that's not even England, but like, what if the United States is just paying fealty and loyalty to some other country, and it's like they're just taking the money, and it could be to England, right? But like, what if it's like England still has its hooks in and saying, okay, you think you're not paying tax, and then they're just getting that money and cycling it right back to England.
We already talked about it on one of our episodes, but I genuinely think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think America is a psyop.
Yeah.
It was the biggest psyop made by the king, and everybody fell for it, and we've just fallen victims, and we are now, we are the middleman.
Yeah.
Like, that's all we are. Everybody thinks, America's powerful. Dude, imagine that's the king's army. You just don't know that.
Yeah.
Like, imagine all this fealty being sworn to another country that we belittle, but that's intentional because they don't want us to know they have the power, even if it's not England. But like, that makes sense that would be where our lineage came from, is England.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say that England is sort of what replaced, or the final form of what used to be Rome. Like, Rome disappeared, but the ideals of Rome and like some of the power from Rome still continue to exist, and it'll remanifest it. And like, where, like, Rome was the first civilization to really have coins. And so the entire banking system comes from Rome.
Yeah.
And then by the time we get to Britain, it's like they're basing it off of those systems in particular. And so some of those ideals, it's like, I don't know, I could see where Rome turned into England, and then England turned into America, but Rome ceased to exist on purpose because it was labeled the bad guy, reformatted as, and really it just never went away. It's the Vatican, but they transferred power, at least, to England, and then they then transferred recognition to the U.S., but still hold power. So it's like this weird 3-step process to, make us feel like we're winning, but we can't win.
Because for me, it's like, I look back, what was the point of the war? What was the point of the Revolutionary War? If we didn't want to be taxed without representation, right? Because the whole point was, oh, well, you're not telling us what you're taxing us for, but now they're telling us what they're taxing us for, but it's the same thing. It's the same rate. We're still getting, like I was saying, you're basically paying 60 to 70% of your income is tax.
Yeah.
So it's like, why did we just allow ourselves to get back to that level?
I don't know. I really think there's a secret, like, structure to how everything is, and people just are so blind to it and refuse to acknowledge any of it, because it's not like I could say this is the facts and break it down. It's just like, you got to realize the version of what you know and the politics between countries and all this stuff. Like, I don't think that's true. Just like the borders could not be the borders, or anything could be different than what we're told. I think you almost have to like realize that. And then, I don't know, just every move is different after that point. But I think we're so focused on world politics, like Russia and China and all these different things. It's like, dude, the controllers of each of these countries are actually invested in secret wars over secret things we don't know about, and they use public wars as excuses for these endeavors. And like, that's the most interesting thing to me. We don't know what any of that stuff is, what they want, where they're doing things. They hide stuff and distract stuff from us, and we don't even know who's who.
Yeah.
So it's like, the ultimate, the boogeyman. But the boogeyman will get away with it every time.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just interesting stuff.
Crazy.
Well, I think that was a good episode.
Yeah.
If we want to wrap it up there, we'd appreciate it if you guys liked and subscribed, and stay tuned for future episodes.
Thank you, everybody.
See ya.